Alright, so new cards have been announced, and I apparently missed the Onyx in my first video, so I'll talk about that one too. And I actually think one of my favorite cards, design-wise, in like the past year is being announced in this. So I will get into that and all the other cards right now. So, Onyx Magescribe, a 6-mana 4/9 dragon, that is neutral, so that's first of all very good. The dragon archetype is also very good, especially for some specific classes. And the spell burst, add 2 random spells from your class to your hand. I can already tell you right now, this might and could potentially see play in a Big Druid, because Big Druid, the problem is when you pull something out, it loses a battle cry, but this, it's a spell burst, so you pull it out with Big Druid, and then you play a spell, and you can still activate it. So, first of all, first thing covered. Second, you could run this in a Highlander Mage for card generation, which is something that kinda lacks in Mage. Not like, not super, but it does lack some draw and card generation a little bit. There have been games where I've played where I have very few options, or at least it seems like I have very few options, or just all my options are way too big. So even if I have a lot of cards in my hand, it's because I wasn't able to play them at the beginning, right? So I think that this card could be good in both of those decks, or maybe even a Dragon Hunter sort of situation, or a Highlander Hunter, or any other dragon-based synergy deck. I think that this looks like it could be quite strong. I could put it on a similar level to Big Ol' Whelp. Maybe not quite as good, because Big Ol' Whelp, it's just the battle cry. You draw a card. Very simple, no randomization to it, but the difference is the Onyx Magescribe has a higher cap, right? Like, you could potentially get a lot of value out of this card, and its low lows are still meh, right? They're still okay. It's still a 6-mana 4/9 dragon, and you still got 2 cards out of it. Or worst case scenario, you don't get a card out of it, and they kill it off immediately, and if that's the case, then they spent 9 damage worth of stuff to kill off your Onyx, so it's not even that big of a deal. I think this card's great. I think this card looks solid. Not meta-defining, but could definitely find its way into several different decks. Frazzled Freshman. I think this card looks very strong. Similar to the 4/9. I think that just stats-wise, it can easily be run. This card alone will shut down aggro decks if you're a priest. It just shut them down. Right, being able to use your 1 attack and trade into a 2/1, potentially killing off 1, maybe 2 minions, especially in a class with pumps like Inner Fire, with cards like Apotheosis, with the +2/+6, and a couple of other ones as well. Even just Power Word Shield. Like, there are a lot of things that you could run with this card that could get you a lot of power, or the thing that gives +1/+2, and then a copy. Obviously, that'll come a lot later, but there's still combos that can be made with this card. Point is, 1/4 stat line, although it has no tribe, is extremely powerful and will cause it to see play in decks. Like, it will allow you to compete with the board at least early. That competition with the board early will allow priest decks to get value from invokes and other cards that will pull you into the late game. And a card like this and some extra removal is great. Also, one last thing is that a lot of 3-drops have, say, 3 health, right? So, Frazzled Freshman will probably last until turn 3, because people don't want to sink 4 damage into it to kill it all the time. Sometimes they just can't. And then next thing you know, you'll hit into one of the dudes, and then play Breath of the Infinite. And his 3 health dude will die, your Frazzled Freshman might live, and you just wipe the board. Like, this could be a very, very, very powerful card to contest the early game board for Priest, and it will make Priest go from like a really annoying deck that can get a ton of value late game if it gets there, to a really, really annoying deck that will even more consistently get to late game because of this card. I think it's going to be a staple card, or at least a pretty moderately run card, and I think it looks great. Combustion is one of the most fun cards I've seen in quite some time, similar to rolling fireball levels of fun to me. I think that there is some clear play around, counterplay, but it can also punish people for playing badly or playing too quickly. And 3 mana removal that does a little bit of board wipe is something Mage desperately needs. Mage gets overrun so fast, to the point where it doesn't even stand a chance against a lot of aggro decks sometimes, unless they get really, really good curves. And I think that this hard removal card that can deal with 1 to 3 minions, depending on how they place and how you line it up, can be really, really strong. I highly recommend running this card in your at least Highlander Mage deck, if not other decks, if you want to run Mage something else. This card's going to be fantastic. I think from a design standpoint, the complexity of this card and the ability to play around it, but also punish people for playing poorly, is the kind of cards that I want to see more in Hearthstone. More creative things like this that have that ability to be really good, but also played around. Like, it's more skill expressive than a lot of other cards, as opposed to just like, oh, just do some damage to this thing, or oh, 5 mana, kill a minion, or oh, stupid priest, 2 mana, kill any big minion you want with Shadow Word Death, and then play a big minion of your own. Like, this one is going to be strong, but it's balanced because it has a high skill cap. And I'm really excited about this card. I really am. I've been liking Mage a lot more recently, and this does not change that. It makes it even more, actually. It makes me look forward to Mage even more. Headmaster Kel'thuzad, 5 mana spell burst. If the spell destroys a minion, summon them. This is going to be stupid in Priest. Holy crap. It's going to be 5 mana, and then 2 mana Shadow Word Death. For 7 mana, you get a 4/6, kill their biggest thing, and then get it. Like, what the heck is Blizzard thinking? And it's neutral. So any control deck ever, on turn 5, gets this guy out. Imagine, like, turn 10, right? You get to turn 10 with Warrior, you play Headmaster and Brawl. I'm not sure how that would work, because I don't know if the spell burst has to stay on the board when it happens, so maybe not necessarily Warrior, but spell burst into maybe a next turn. You know, Flame Strike. Maybe not Flame Strike, because that's not a good example, but like hard single target removal, or even board wipe if you can get it off early. It could shut down aggro decks. 5 mana 4/6 isn't too shabby. Worst case scenario, it's a soft taunt against, say, an aggro deck. Best case scenario, for 7 mana into Priest, you get a 4/6 and then a giant minion and kill their biggest minion. And mid-range scenario, for 7 mana, you play him, you penance another minion on your opponent's board, you heal a little, you get an extra minion, and it's fine. Like, this card has a lot of potential. I think it's going to be very, very strong in a lot of control-oriented decks, and I think that this card is going to be meta-defining. I don't like it, don't get me wrong. I think this card is going to be bullcrap from the very beginning, but it does look like it'll be very strong. Steeldancer. I think Corsair Cash Nerf was actually preemptive for this. Not giving weapons an extra attack makes this card a little less broken. Now it's going to be a pretty decent card. It's not going to be absurdly powerful, but it's going to be solid in Warrior. And in Rogue, I would love to see more Quest Rogues or Deadly Poisons or some more weapons to support the Steeldancer. Because right now, I think that Warrior, the Warrior side of it, looks a lot better, even though the Rogue's hero power is an extra card. Like, the Rogue one will be more consistent, but it'll probably be weaker than the Warrior one. The Warrior one will still be fairly consistent, and it'll just be more powerful on average than the Rogue half, but there's potential here. So, keep a lookout for this card, and look to see if Rogue and or Warrior gets more support for this card. Infiltrator Lilian. It's a stealth 4/2, death rattle stealth, or summon a 4/2 Forsaken Lilian that attacks a random enemy. I think this card's solid. I think this card's not necessarily ridiculously busted, because I just don't like things that attack random enemies. But I could see this card being extremely high payoff, and since it's stealth, it's hard to remove. It fits into Stealth Rogue, which I really hope that they push a little bit more, because I think that Stealth Rogue is a cool archetype that I really think could be quite strong. And it's already the most played version of Rogue right now. It has, I think, eclipsed Secret Rogue officially. So I think that this card fits into a very powerful Rogue type already, has a very powerful ability, won't be meta-defining, won't be an absolute necessity, but if you have her, will be good in certain decks, like in Stealth Rogue. Maybe even in normal Rogue, because like this ability, being able to deal with stuff, is something that Rogue lacks. This could be very, very good. Cycle of Hatred. Deal 3 damage to all minions. Summon a 3/3 spirit for every minion killed. Alright. Demon Hunter. This is definitely pushing more for a control orientation of Demon Hunter, which I like. I think that the pure aggro has seen enough. It's been too busted for quite some time. Cycle of Hatred. It's slow. It's a 7 mana card, so it's not busted by any means, because there's ways you can play around it. By this time, most minions have more than 3 health anyway. And I think that this card looks really fun and fairly balanced, actually. Surprisingly enough, although this card looks very powerful, It's a later game card, and later game cards like this are supposed to be extremely powerful. Do I think that it'll be ridiculously overpowered? I feel like it could seem that way if it's in like a more aggressive meta, where basically if you hit turn 7, you swing the board. But in most cases, if the meta, especially if the meta slows down and has less minions in general, I don't think this card will be ridiculously busted. I think this card is pretty meta dependent. My bad. Brittlebone Destroyer. Priest and Warlock. If your hero's health changed this turn, destroy a minion. So basically for 6 mana, destroy a minion and get a 3/3. That's not bad. That's not bad. For 6 mana, you either heal 2 or draw 1 and take 2, and then get to kill a minion on top of that. And that's not even including Renew for Priest, or say you have Apotheosis on a minion, so you're already able to lifesteal and you don't need to play it. So, interesting combo real quick. You play this turn 1, it lives for a turn or 2, you get Apotheosis on it, right? Boom, after Apotheosis, turn 4, you Apotheosis heal, and you're able to kill something off with the Destroyer. With Warlock, you also have the 4/5 that does 3 damage to you when it attacks, which could also synergize very well with this card. I think this card has potential, but I don't know how good the decks that would run this card will be. Like Pain Warlock, I don't think will be good, but I do think this could be run in a Highlander Priest or potentially a Galakron Priest for some pretty solid value. Boneweb Egg, I really like this. Death Rattle, summon a 2/2/1 spiders. If this card is discarded, trigger its Death Rattle. I think this card looks sick. I think this card looks really, really cool. I like the fact that they're putting in some discard effects, and I'm excited to see where this card goes. And I hope that there's more discard synergy, because this is great. Maybe for Wild, more discard synergy would not be good, because it could make it really strong in Wild. But honestly, this card looks fun as heck. And even if you play it for 2 mana as an O2, it doesn't even feel that bad, because if it dies, you get 2/2/1s. In Zoolock, you have a couple of ways of giving things attack, whether it be with the Scrap Imp, whether it be with the 2/1 that gives things attack if it dies. If you curve out into it well, you could run Argent Squire. There are other things you could do to pump up this thing and potentially get value, even if you don't run to discard it. This card, I think, is not going to be super strong, but has potential and looks really interesting. And could be really good in Zoolock, if there are cards to support it. Another Priest Warlock card. A legendary, actually. After you play a minion, destroy and summon a 4/4 failed student. Okay, so basically this is replacing Takan for the Lackey Warlock, and even a Zoo Warlock. This could be absolutely absurd. Like, no, this is just going to be insane in Zoo Warlock. I don't think it's going to be as good in Priest, unless there are, like, more Lackeys and stuff, which could happen in Priest, right? But in Zoolock, especially if you hit late game or later game, you can just summon a whole board of 4/4s. Like on turn 5, getting a 3/6 and then a 4/4 by just playing a 1-drop that immediately dies and you get a thing. Could be nuts. Turn 6, a 3/6 and 2 4/4s. That'll be nuts. And since you draw so many cards and have so many 1-drops, I could see this card being very, very, very consistent. With all the card draw that Zoolock has, I think Zoolock is getting a lot of love, especially with this card, with the card we just talked about. This card, you'll play this and this turn 6, get a 3/6, a 4/4, and 2/2/1s for 6 mana. That's pretty strong, just by having these 2 cards in your hand. And you don't even have to play in the same turn. Like, if this guy lives and you combo him with something else, and then just happen to play this later, holy moly, that's strong. I could see this being a really, really, really strong card. This is, I think, is one of the strongest cards that has been revealed so far, actually. Maybe I'm being a little bit dramatic about this, but holy moly, this card's insane. So far, I really like this card, and I really like this card. These two are insane. I think this card's strong, but will destroy the meta. Oh, it's going to be so stupid. And then we have the Fletch Giant, another Priest and Warlock card. This card, first of all, looks disgusting. Oh my god, get that off my screen. A big mistake indeed. Actually, that's hilarious. That's so accurate. But this card will make Pain Warlock potentially viable. This could be run in a Highlander Priest deck. yeah, this card's gonna be great. This card's gonna be really strong. It's gonna be an epic, obviously, but I think this card could work in, say, a Warlock deck. Especially if you life tap a couple of times. Like, even in Zoolock, I'd life tap easily, like 3 or 4 times. And say in a Quest Warlock, this card would be really good because you life tap like 4 or 5 times at least. At least. And you also have some heal cards. You also have Rain of Fire that can do damage to yourself if you don't life tap in a given turn. You have a lot of ways of doing damage to yourself. I can see this deck working, or this card working in a lot of Warlock decks. And Priest, maybe a little bit less, because Priest has a lot of value in other ways, but could still see play in that as well. So yeah, in order of like the favorite cards that have been released, at least in this set, or this set of like 9 cards, 10 cards, I'd say that Combustion is my favorite. And then these two are like clear second favorites that are also really good. And I think the color combination is pretty neat. I actually really like the light and dark kind of thing. I just like that aesthetic. But aesthetic aside, these cards are insane. This card's great design in my opinion. And the rest are all pretty decent. Like none of these other than Kel'thuzad, even just in general, seem to be too ridiculous. Maybe Wild Claw. I could see some crazy combos with Wild Claw. But other than those two, I think these are all really, really good. Actually, this card's going to be insane as well. So yeah, everything that's being released right now, I think is pushing things in a pretty interesting direction, or trying to push things that already should have existed, like Stealth Rogue. More Control Demon Hunter will be cool. This will bring Pain Warlock into the meta, maybe. This will bring back Zoo Warlock. This is just a great mage card in general. This will put Priest having a little bit more early game consistency, which will be great. I love all of this, man. I love absolutely all of these cards being released, except for, again, Kel'thuzad. That will be a mistake, mark my words. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the thought process behind all of these and just the general review, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya. Peace.